94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, in Eldoret is 96.7, Malindi is 97.7, and Nyeri 90.9. And Nyeri's frequency goes all the way to Nanyuki, where we've been getting some callers, and the governor who will be speaking to us this morning is in Nanyuki, so they're tuned in on 90.9 in Nyeri. Before we begin the hour, City, let's start with today's proverb.
A man who pays respect to the great paves way for his own greatness.
A man who pays respect to the
great paves way
for his own
greatness.
Okay. This must have come from people who thought they are great and they wanted to be recognized.
That is it.
Respect me so that you shall also be great.
And you might also get to be respected.
Yeah. These are just opinion leaders and opinion shapers who want to be respected, forcing themselves to be called Mheshimiwa. Call me a Mheshimiwa, and one day you might just be.
I might actually call you a mwananchi mtukufu.
Yeah. So, this issue of allocation of revenue to the different counties, right?
Yes.
After the Division of Revenue Bill was passed and agreed upon, 316.5 billion shillings to go to all the 47 counties, and each of the 47 counties to receive its equitable share through a formula that is changed after every 5 years. Now, there has been this whole issue of the third basis formula that has sat in the Senate since it was taken to the Senate by the Commission for Revenue Allocation in April 2019. But the last couple of months is when we've seen the Senate going back and forth and not agreeing on how the new formula shall look like. And for that reason, they have also not now passed a crucial piece of legislation called the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, which becomes the Act, which is now what decides of this 316.5 billion shillings. How much does County A receive? How much does County B receive? All the way to county number 047, Nairobi. How much do each of these counties receive? That back and forth has led to the impasse in the Senate. Then that back and forth, we are told, has also led to counties not receiving money in this financial year. Since July 1st, 2020, counties have not been able to access any funds because the National Treasury argues that its hands are tied. It doesn't know how much to give who wants what, how much, under what legal basis. Now, that back and forth is what has seen the Council of Governors also come up in various platforms to say, guys, please agree on this. But also, Council of Governors, remember, had gone to court last year on the issue of delays in the Division of Revenue Bill, which we had witnessed last year. And because of that, the Supreme Court came up with its own opinion and set a precedent and said this is what should happen. But anyway, let's look at what happened yesterday. There was a circular issued by the chairman of the Council of Governors to all the Excellency governors. You know, I now have to call them Excellency so that one day I shall also...
Now, they've always had that particular title.
I will now refer to them as Excellency every time so that, you know, I pay respect to Washimiwa, so that one day I can also become a Mwashimiwa.
You might even become excellent.
Just going with today's proverb. This is what the circular read. Reference is made to the above matter, and the above matter is the impending shutdown occasioned by lack of resources, and further to the resolution made in the council meeting of the 8th of September 2020. Since then, the Senate has still not been able to unlock the stalemate on the flow of funds. It's therefore not clear when this impasse will be resolved. In this regard, all county governments are advised to issue necessary notices as follows. 1. County health facilities will not permit any new inpatient admissions. They'll only provide minimal outpatient services. And number 2, all non-essential services are hereby suspended and county employees are advised to proceed on leave for 2 weeks. In the meantime, the council will continue to push for the speedy release of the county funds. Signed by His Excellency Wycliffe Oparanya, the governor of Kakamega County and the chairman of the Council of Governors. Of course, now we saw the reaction of that in the Senate, in the whole republic, because what we are saying is hospitals across the country that are, of course, under the county governments save for the level 6 hospitals, and that is the National Referral Hospitals, Kenyatta, and
Moi.
yes, Moi in Eldoret. All the other hospitals are in the counties, and you're not going to get admission. You can imagine how many people actually get admitted to hospital on a daily basis across the republic. And we are saying that now we cannot see this happen. Of course, this is not an easy thing. It's not even an easy conversation to have. And the Senate yesterday reacted. But the reaction of the Senate, as you saw in the afternoon on the floor of the House, was on the statement by the governor, was pushback on the person of Wycliffe Oparanya, the position of the Council of Governors and the governors themselves, calling them, this is not a council of governors, it's a council of gangsters.
Wow. Is that?
Let's seek to understand this particular matter and bring in one of the members of the Council of Governors. And this is the Laikipia Governor, Ndiritu Muriithi. Thank you very much for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you
Your
doing?
Excellency,
How are you
Eric
doing, Your
Rashid.
Excellency?
Good morning. I am fine, thank you.
Good morning.
Look, great to talk to all of you. On the call me great, you'll be great point. The standing orders of most jurisdictions, the standing orders in most parliaments say that it shall be dishonorable to call yourself honorable, because it's not for you to say. It's not for you to say. It's for others to determine whether you are honorable. So that even in my own case, it would be very dishonorable for me to call myself My Excellency or some other thing like that. It's for others to determine if in fact we are befitting of those titles. As for Eric being His Excellency, I have no doubts in my mind that he has everything it takes, and probably more, to be His Excellency, Governor of one county or another, or indeed President of this Republic.
Your Excellency, you have no idea what you've just unleashed.
John, please make sure that we have this clip.
We're going to be forced to listen to this on a very regular basis, in and out of the studio, by virtue of those words that you have just uttered.
Oh, my bad. But believe you me,
No. It shall be dishonorable of me to impose on this on you. All right? I expect that you guys will be calling me Your Excellency Eric going forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On the subject of the day, let me start with the Supreme Court reference, and say that in fact it is not an opinion, it is a ruling of the Supreme Court, and generally a ruling of the Supreme Court is to be taken as law, because it is law.
Yep.
And listening to your intro, you have explained it perfectly. I just think it was a bit sad yesterday, the way the senators reacted to this question, because the truth is, whether you like Governor Oparanya or not, the truth of the matter is that counties have not been able to access our equitable share, and it makes it impossible to continue providing services. I hope Kenyans know that this whole financial year, we have not been able to access our equitable share, the result of which many counties have not been able to pay salaries. For example, of the medical staff, the very ones at the front line of trying to contain the COVID pandemic. So I think the where we are at the moment is that it really is impractical. It's not possible, because you are asking people who you have not paid salaries for 3 months to continue working. And it is frankly a bit inhuman to do so. Now, the even sadder bit is that, contrary to what the Treasury is saying, the law exists allowing them to disburse up to 50% of last year's allocations. And this law is contained in the Public Finance PFM regulations at Regulation 134, which reads very plainly that if the CARA is not approved by Parliament on time, then you will disburse 50% of the previous year's CARA. So we are in a circumstance where senior people heading institutions are basically refusing to follow the law. And it is putting the country in a very big quandary. Finally, they have relied on a very, shall I say, odd opinion provided by the Honorable Attorney General to the effect that the PFM regulations are bad law. And unfortunately, that opens an even bigger can of worms, because if the regulations are not good law, then nobody is bound in the Republic to obey those regulations.
Yes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, most of the things we are doing or we do are usually elaborated in regulations that are subsequent to the main act. So he hasn't been helpful at all. I fear that he has actually unleashed a very big genie, where if you ask us now, like for instance, take a big point often raised, Eric and team, about wages and salaries, where the law says we must try to contain wages and salaries so that all the money is not only going for salaries, and it is capped at 35%. That is contained in a PFM regulation. So if the regulations are bad law, as the Attorney General has said, then we are not bound to honor them. Yeah, which is a very, very sad way of looking at things. And I fear for devolution, given the state of play today.
Governor, sorry, City, just ask.
No, what I wanted to ask is, what you've quoted is an utterance by the Attorney General. So, do I understand you to mean that when the Attorney General makes an utterance,
it's an opinion actually written officially?
Yes, but it's an utterance nonetheless. An opinion is an utterance, a long one, but an utterance. So, does it then become law? It's just an opinion.
No. It doesn't become law. But what is happening is that our colleagues, the Controller of Budget and the CS for National Treasury, as well as his key technical people, they are using that opinion to say that their hands are tied. Because remember, we have been asking them, why are you not proceeding on the basis of your own regulations? Because again, remember, the Public Finance Act regulations are drafted by the Treasury and the Attorney General. So we are asking them, why are you not following your own rules? And then they're saying, well, we are relying on the Attorney General, who has said that the rules are not very good, that they are bad law. And therefore,
if you allow me, Governor, just so that we can bring everybody on board on this, this is a letter written to the Council of Governors by the Attorney General on the 11th of September 2020. Legal basis for disbursing to counties when the division of revenue is in place. So there are, of course, various introductory parts of this. They say it talks about now the Regulation 134 of the Public Finance Management National Government Regulations 2015. The above-mentioned regulation provides as follows: equitable transfer before approval of county allocation of revenue bill. And this is what it says: if the county allocation of revenue bill, which now is what we expect to be coming out of the Senate, submitted to Parliament for a financial year has not been approved by Parliament or is not likely to be approved by Parliament by the beginning of the financial year, the Controller of Budget may authorize withdrawal of up to 50% from the Consolidated Fund based on the last County Allocation of Revenue Act approved by Parliament for the purposes of meeting expenditure of the county government for the financial year. This is what the regulation says. Part 2 of that says the authority under paragraph 1 shall seize upon assent of the County Allocation of Revenue Act for the financial year, and also the transfer to county governments made under paragraph 1 under this regulation shall form part of their equitable transfer for the financial year. Makes sense, right? But he says, from the Attorney General's desk, we note that the foregoing regulation provides a framework for the disbursement of funds from the Consolidated Fund to the counties in the event that the Allocation of Revenue Act has not been approved by Parliament. However, it is our considered opinion that the said regulation is of doubtful constitutional validity. As noted hereinafter, he says that, yes, I pause.
Pause there, Eric. These regulations are drafted by the same Attorney General for and on behalf or together with the National Treasury.
Yep.
So that statement, I find it a statement of incredible direction, because if his office prepared these regulations.
Yep.
Together with the county, with the National Treasury.
And the regulation actually is not even passed. It has to go to Parliament, go to the Committee of Delegated Legislation, and then it's approved by the entire House before it actually goes into effect.
Exactly. So that we are faced with as I said.
But his argument, if you just allow me to continue, the argument that he says here is that, as noted, Article 2062 of the Constitution directs that money may be withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund only in accordance with an appropriation by an Act of Parliament, in accordance with Article 222 or 223, or a charge against the fund is as authorized by the Constitution or an Act of Parliament. So he says that this regulation is not an Act of Parliament. That's the argument.
That's the argument, Eric. But
it's a regulation that brings to effect an Act of Parliament, isn't it?
The courts have pronounced themselves many times, and I'm quite sure retired Justice Kihara himself recalls ruling on this many times, that the regulations are part and parcel of the Act, because they are the ones that operationalize the Act.
Yep.
So they must be led together. But even if be that as it may, Eric, if you are to look at Article 202 of the Constitution, it does not, it's actually very straightforward. It does not create any dependencies of any kind. It simply says that revenue raised nationally shall be shared equitably among the national government and county government. So that the Constitution does not even really care, if I can use that word a bit carefully, about whether you make the regulation or not. It simply says the nationally raised revenue shall be shared equitably between national and county governments. Further on, at Article 219 of the Constitution, again, the Constitution demands that the county's share, and I read it, a county's share of the revenue raised nationally shall be transferred to the county without undue delay and without deduction. So that these regulations are merely trying to operationalize that part. Also, finally, this idea about an Act of Parliament is debunked by the fact that the Act and the regulations are one and the same. And if you look further down in the Constitution, it tries to encourage everybody, demands actually, that when we read the Constitution, we read it for purposes of promoting the rights of Kenyans, not for purposes of curtailing the rights of Kenyans. Now, the import of what Justice Kihara has done basically is to put in jeopardy, for example, the right to access healthcare, because without money, we will not be able to run health services. So I just think it's a terrible, terrible circumstance we are in. But perhaps we should also look then at what about then the Senate and the National Assembly, what is their role in this whole circuit. Now, what has happened, as you know, Eric and team, is that the Senate has been or has failed to agree on the third basis of sharing revenue among counties. Again, a very sad circumstance, given that they have been considering this issue for more than a year and a half. The formula having been presented to them by the CRA around about April, May of 2019. In addition, the Senate has been unwilling to process the CARA using the existing formula. So that now they are not unable to agree on the new, and they are unwilling to use the old. And that's what has resulted in the CARA being 5 months late. And without it, and with the National Treasury refusing to obey its own regulations, then basically we are stuck.
So are you saying, Governor, that, with all that has transpired now and getting to the point at which we are now, that counties were absolutely forced to take the decision that was taken yesterday in terms of now shutting down operations? Was it that it was a situation that was absolutely, you couldn't get away from it completely? Was it the last resort?
It is the last resort. Look, if in more than a dozen counties, staff are either on strike or having served notice for strike. Why? Because the cash flows we have from own source revenue are not sufficient to support the services required. So that we absolutely, some counties have made local arrangements to borrow, for instance, but remember the borrowing is capped at 5% of your budget. So within a month or so, you basically exhaust the opportunity you have to raise monies from borrowing. So we are in a circumstance in many counties where staff have not been paid since June, we are frankly at a point where we may not be able to continue. It's a bit like if you are in a bus or in a car, when the petrol is finished, it is finished. Even if the Senate calls us whatever names, the reality is that there is no petrol in the car. It cannot run.
So was this action then to elicit a further reaction, or was the action really that hands-up approach that we really cannot do anything? Or are we looking at pushing a particular agenda here to say that we're going to do this to elicit reaction, or truly, there's nothing we can do and we cannot operate as counties?
Well, look, I think it is prudent for any manager to face the reality of her circumstance. I think it would be inhuman to continue demanding that people work if you actually cannot pay them.
Right.
And in any case, that is why as I said, about at least a dozen counties, there is already precipitate action by the workers themselves. So we are not doing it in order to elicit any reaction. We are simply taking the only course available to us as managers of these institutions. But if you're asking the separate question that what should happen, what will happen, I think that certainly the National Treasury and the Controller of Budget need to re-examine their position, both legally as institutions and also as individuals, because we believe now that they are liable to prosecution under the PFM Act at 196 because of violating the PFM. And lawyers will be looking into this today to see if we cannot bring prosecution against these two senior people in their own personal capacity. I also think that it is incumbent upon the Senate to conclude this matter one way or other. If the Senate cannot yet agree on the new formula, they should proceed on the basis of the old formula so that we are not punishing Kenyans. And I think that if you read the Supreme Court ruling from last year, the Supreme Court said that it is inconceivable and the Constitution does not contemplate in continuity in government. And that is why the Supreme Court said last year that if Parliament continues in this rogue behavior, the courts will be very willing to entertain petitions for the dissolution of this Parliament. And they continue to say, we forewarn the Parliament that it runs the risk of dissolution. And I also expect that in the coming days, you will see Kenyans of goodwill presenting petitions in the High Court for the dissolution of the Senate. But all of these things would be really unnecessary if both the Senate and the National Treasury were to simply agree to do what is right for all Kenyans and to stop holding Kenyans at ransom.
Your Excellency, if you are allowed to speculate, what do you really think is going on?
Are you a student of history?
I am a student of history, yes.
You know, in the 60s, we started off with devolution. As a matter of fact, it was perhaps a stronger version of devolution than the current one. We had regions, we had regional assemblies, we had, in fact, regional presidents, and the Constitution guaranteed regions 32% of all commodity taxes and 100% of all taxation on petroleum. And you can find that at Article 137 and 138 of the 1963 Constitution. In 1964, 65, 66, the same script that is going on today was applied. And the regions were denied access to money. As a result, the medics at that time, as well as the teachers and so on, were going on strike every month, every quarter, and in the end, the Senate itself was abolished via a constitutional amendment number 4 of 1966. So that one day, in January of 1967, the senators went home as senators, and the following day, they came back as members of parliament, or members of the National Assembly. For instance, in Laikipia, we had one constituency which was called Laikipia Nanyuki. It was divided into two. Then the MP went to Laikipia West, and the senator became the MP of Laikipia East. And that was the end of devolution. My own speculation, Eric, is that, look, devolution is facing a similar assault. Because frankly, look, these guys, these are really very highly competent, accomplished, senior people. If you think about the controller of budget, if you think about the CS to the treasury, if you think about the accountant general, who is the one who signs the checks, if you will, if you think about the Honorable Attorney General, he himself is a retired justice of the Court of Appeal. I mean, these are really senior people with so much experience and knowledge. It is inconceivable. It is inconceivable that they're doing this, not knowing what they're doing. Think about the Senate. You know, the Senate seems caught like a deer, you know, in bright headlights. The Senate seems caught in a thing that they are unable to get out of, as though they are being manipulated by forces elsewhere. Anyway, I think I better stop speculating.
We're speaking with Governor Ndiritu Muriithi. Okay, the action that the governors have taken now in terms of withdrawing services, because they say that they don't have money to finance these services. They don't have money to pay salaries. let's look at that, the impact that it has on Wanjiku. You know, at the very end, it is the grass that is suffering, and we are the grass. So let's talk about now the plight of the grass. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this and every morning is CT Muga, Nduoko, Eric Latif. And joining us on the line this morning is Laikipia Governor Ndiritu Muriithi. So, counties have shut down, CT.
Yes,
People who are going to be seeking medical services will basically not be admitted if we just go. If governors actually agree to do what the Council of Governors chairman advised them to do, is this a good thing to do?
I don't think the decision was taken lightly, because if I look at the reaction that came from the Senate, you get the impression that they felt that the Council of Governors were just playing around. But remember, these are the people who are at the helm of determining what happens within their counties. Such a decision cannot be arrived at lightly. To shut down your own county when you know very well what that would mean?
Which is why I actually also come back to what Ndu you were asking. I mean, was this the last resort? Have you exhausted all other options, Governor, before you say that when Wanjiku goes to hospital today, she will be turned away and told you cannot get admission services?
For instance, Odu, yesterday morning we had yet another emergency meeting with the CS Treasury and his team, with the Controller of Budget, with the Honorable Attorney General. We are not able to make headway. The day before, there was a big meeting in the big house with the big leaders of all the entities concerned. These two meetings are at the tail end of maybe 30, 40 different sessions and consultations, all that have not yielded. We have gone to every office, written petitions to the Attorney General. I myself have had occasion to sit down with the Honorable Attorney General and walk him through what we believe is the law. We have put it on paper. I mean, we have done everything possible. We have engaged the House leadership, both of the Senate and of the House of Assembly, of the National Assembly. I mean, we have done everything possible, and we haven't given up yet. As you know, yesterday, we went to the High Court, again, to try and afford all parties an opportunity. So, for instance, we are saying to the institutions, you know, because they are framing goodwill, and we're saying, look, if really you are genuine in what you're saying, come to court, because they're saying our hands are tied. There is no law to disburse.
Yeah.
So we have approached the court, and we are saying then to the National Treasury and to the Auditor General, the Controller, and to the AG, look, come to court then. Let's record consent so that then your hands are untied by the court. So if they're genuine, then that's the action we expect they will do. We have not given up. I have told you we are also considering legal action against them as individual officers, pursuant to or following the Public Finance Management Act. We cannot give up. We are governors. We are Kenyans. We cannot give up.
Governor,
we must keep trying.
Do you smell a rat here, or are you seeing it for face value in terms of, all right, their hands are tied, there's something to do with the law, or do you think that there's something deeper than what the eye can perceive?
Odu, as I said in my speculation, and look, I have to say it is speculation because I don't have 100% proof. But you see, when you see smoke, there is a really high likelihood that there is fire where that smoke is coming from. So that the actions we are seeing suggest, for example, in the BBI, there was a push to do away with counties and have regions, or have both counties and regions.
Yeah.
Could it be that the proponents of this idea want to create confusion in this sector in order to justify their action? Number one. Number two, could it be, and remember, colleagues, devolution was if you will, a ceasefire agreement. In January of 2008, when this country came very, very close to civil war, many of the underlying issues were feelings of exclusion, that we believe we are marginalized by so and so and so and so and so on. And the solution was to devolve power and therefore the use of resources, so that then we in our own country are, for the most part, in charge of our own outcomes. But there were many who did not necessarily believe. So could it be that the faction that did not really believe in devolution, the faction that was forced to concede devolution, could it be that they are now moving as they did in the 60s?
That they have regrouped.
Sorry?
That they have regrouped. If we look at...
They have regrouped. Thank you, Eric. Could it be that they have regrouped?
If we look at the debate that we've been having in the Senate over this extended period of time, back and forth, there's stalemate, there's serious, no proper agreement, and then even splitting the discussion into there are gainers and there are losers. And then there's a faction called Team Kenya, and then there's the other faction that is really pushing and saying those that are against the BBI, if we don't pass this formula, BBI is dead. Why would there be such grandstanding? That's number one. And number two, there has been concern as well that during this whole entire debate, the Council of Governors has not lent its voice on the debate, on the issue of formula. As people who are in charge of counties, as people who are actually on the ground, and you understand the impact that an extra shilling or a shilling less would have on the operations of counties, why is it that the Council of Governors has not really come out to say, okay, we have looked at the proposed formula by the CRA, we have looked at the various amendments, and this is what we think would be a good way to go?
Oh, but Eric, I beg respectively to disagree with you, because we remember this formula did not come yesterday.
Yep.
This formula has been about 2.5 years in the making. It has already been before Senate, meaning it was taken to the Senate more than 1.5 years ago.
Yep.
Before that, the Commission for Revenue Allocation had spent more than a year crafting this formula, engaging with us over and over, engaging with the Senate over and over. Now, the reason, back to the question Udu asked me and you asked me when you were speculating, ask the question in the following manner. Most policy, and I'm sure Mr. Muga will agree with me, most policy, there's nothing like neutral policy. When you make policy, some people may lose and some people may gain. The question always is, are the gains more than the losses so that the gains can compensate the losses? Now, when we moved from the first formula to the second formula, about 28 counties were worse off, quote unquote, meaning they got slightly less money than they had gotten the year before. But there was no hula baloo.
Yep.
In this particular formula, 17 counties are slightly worse off. Now, you can ask the question, by how much? What is the totality of the amount by which these 17 counties are worse off? So 17 or 19, the number is escaping me. It could be 19. But the total amount, Eric, is 12.5 billion. 12.5 billion. Yeah. So pause there for a moment. The national budget is 3.1 trillion. So that 10% of that budget is about 310 billion.
Yeah.
So that 1% of that budget is 31 billion.
Yeah.
We are looking for 12 billion. It is less than 0.5 percentage point
of the national budget.
How can we be quarreling about that, Eric? Tell me, am I living in a different universe? How can that be a big issue among us? less than 1.5%. How much are people stealing from KEMSA?
Or even from the counties.
How much was Itare Dam? How much was Kimwarel Dam? So how can we be quarreling about 12 billion? How can we be putting the lives of Kenyans at risk over 12 billion? How can we debate 12 billion for 2 years?
Your Excellency, something comes to mind here when we talk about the gains and the losses. If we look at how the equitable distribution was planned and how it was actually put into operation, was there not an understanding that there would be changes at some point in the future? Was there not an understanding even at the time that the monies that were being given to certain counties was with the understanding that certain things needed to be done and this couldn't be done ad infinitum? At some point, they ought to have been done. So if the money allocated for it at that time was given, then at some point that money would not be there.
In fact, Mr. Muga, the Constitution goes further because it creates the Equalization Fund.
Yep.
Yes.
And the Equalization Fund has accumulated over 100 billion shillings, which actually has not been spent. So that if you accept, and you must accept, well, I personally believe it myself, that some areas of Kenya were left behind for a long time in terms of whatever. So what is the solution? The solution was to create a special fund that would last for 20 years, called the Equalization Fund, which would be utilized exclusively in those counties or in those areas that had been left behind in the course of development of the last 50 years. In addition, the whole point of creating a commission for revenue allocation is to afford ourselves to create a specialist body that would continuously work to try and ensure that resources are shared equitably amongst all Kenyans in all corners of Kenya. So these mechanisms are already in place. But again, I want to ask you, how can we be quarreling about 12 billion when KEMSA, 40 billion, Kimarwell, 20 billion, I don't know, Itare, 30 billion. How can we...
Actually, to answer your question, why are you quarreling? If somebody wants to have a quarrel with you, they will have one.
Over anything.
Oh, exactly.
Over a torn slipper.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that in any case, the Council of Governors made resolutions repeatedly to say to the Senate that, look, if honestly it is taking you a lot of time to agree on what this formula is, please allow us to proceed on the basis of the existing formula. We have resolved that over and over and transmitted it to the Senate. But what has happened in the Senate? The Senate is split at least 3 ways. A minimum of 3 ways, if not more. Maybe actually four segments or 4 factions within the Senate, which is making it very difficult for them to come to any sensible resolution. You remember already, in terms of party affiliations, the ODM and Jubilee. Then you recall, because of a fallout in Jubilee, the Jubilee obviously is split at least into 2 factions. So the so-called Team Kenya or Kieleweke, whatever, Tanga Tanga and Kieleweke or something like this. Then those counties who disagree with the formula, primarily counties from the coastal part of Kenya and the northeastern part of Kenya, so that we have those factions, and because of the 2022 politics, those factions, basically this whole debate about the formula has become a debate and a competition for 2022, so that you are seen as the one supporting this group of counties or the other group of counties. So unfortunately, it may not resolve with the speed in which we needed it to resolve.
Unfortunately,
because it
Governor,
has become...
it seems has become quite a sticky mess. And unfortunately, they say when 2 elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. The grass in this case turning out to be Kenyans as early as today. And it looks like that, the people who would depend on their salary for the last 3 months, those who would depend on healthcare going forward, those who would depend on other services, for example, that the counties would be able to offer, will not be able to access that because of this tiff that's going on at the moment. How then should that be resolved? Taking into consideration that the Kenyans on a large scale are the ones who are going to suffer this.
How should it resolve? I see at least 4 different avenues, and I think all of them must be pursued simultaneously. One solution is, frankly, for the president to step in and to tell his officials at the National Treasury, frankly, to follow the law and to style up and to stop hiding behind odd, innocuous arguments. Let's follow the law. I think that's one very direct way of resolution. That's one option. Option 2 has been created by the Council of Governors. Since these Treasury officials, controller of budget, since they are all saying that their hands are tied, then we have gone to court to untie their hands. So if they're genuine, they will come to court today and tomorrow once they are served, and they will record consent so that the court can untie their hands and we can proceed. That is option 2. It's also fast resolving and quick resolving, and that's an option available and is on the table, and that the Council of Governors is offering. Let's go that route. Option 3 is that the Senate itself must really figure out a way to put their factional differences aside so that they can either agree on the formula, or in the alternative, pass the CARA using the old formula, even as they continue to debate and seek consensus on the new formula. So I would say those are the 3 principal options available to Kenya today.
What I marvel at, even as we're coming to the end of this particular show, is how did the governors, how did the collective excellencies allow Senate to control this narrative and this debate? Instead of asking what has been done with the monies that has been allocated, instead of looking at the function of Senate and what it ought to do, and given what it is now doing, essentially endangering the lives of Kenyans, doing the complete opposite of what they're supposed to do, why have the governors allowed the Senate to control this narrative?
Look, I would say on that one, we could have done better. We must still do better as a Council of Governors. In our defense, Mr. Muga, we I was about to say, hunted lot. I mean, we are under attack in every corner. The war on corruption seems to only find governors. And if you are a governor, if your officer has stolen, then even you should be arrested. That seems to be the new norm. And we wonder, when all these, when people steal from KEMSA, we don't see the Minister for Health or the Vice President or Deputy President or the President being hauled to court. Nonetheless, we must do better, and we will do better. We also, I think, as a, not to be an agent provocateur, that is the work of Eric, but I think that this council, we made a strategic mistake from the very beginning, that the national government, the president in person, asked us that why do we continue with this adversarial relationship between the national government and the Council of Governors? Why can't we do detente? Now, being political realist, we thought, well, makes sense.
Makes sense.
Let us seek to discuss more than prosecute the issue in the court of public opinion. While we heeded that agreement, informal agreement. The national government and the Senate did not. So now we are playing catch up. We have sought to discuss in meetings. For example, during COVID, I think we have had 4 separate summit meetings. We have sought to discuss these things over and over in the summit meetings as a way of resolving without having to go and fight publicly. But unfortunately, we've come the worse off, and as a council, we have to reconsider whether we want to continue with this policy of deterrence.
Governor, we want to thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. I want you to speak to the people of Laikipia and other counties in the country and tell them when they're going to seek services today and they are not able to access those services, whom should they point a finger at?
I would say to all Kenyans that you will point a finger, first of all, at the Senate, because it is the Senate that has failed to agree on the basis of revenue allocation to counties. It is also the Senate that has refused our request to pass the allocation on the basis of the previous formula. You will also point a finger at the National Treasury and at the Controller of Budget, who have refused, in spite of a clear provision in the financial regulations at Regulation 134, in spite of a clear, in plain English, mechanism for releasing monies, they have refused to do so. You will point a finger at the Attorney General, who has offered them refuge in terms of a legal opinion. We, on our part as governors, we will endeavor to provide, as the communique says, a minimum level of health services, because we must endeavor to protect the lives of Kenyans. For example, in Laikipia, we will endeavor to have. So you may not, like for example, public health. We may not be able to offer you public health services today, but we will ensure that there is a minimum level of health service available to Kenyans so that we don't jeopardize your lives. In the meantime, we will continue to seek resolution. We will engage with the Senate leadership. We will continue engaging with the National Treasury. We have engaged with the courts, with all these actors, with the idea of finding a solution. Thank you.
Asante sana, Governor, and we wish you a good day. And as you face the heat, we wish you all the best as well.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much,
God
Governor.
bless you.
Thank you.